Alright, what's up guys? Back at it again here with another video, and today I'm going to talk about a topic that lots of us struggle with, and in particular, lots of us tall guys, but honestly, this topic is going to really retain anyone, guys and girls. It's a common thing we all struggle with, and that is lower body. And I know I'm always making fun of myself because I've got some chicken legs. Yes, they have seen a lot of improvement recently, but I've always had very skinny legs. So I think over the past few months, I've really kind of dug deep into my leg training and tried to fix this topic. So really this video is to help you grow your legs, develop your lower body, going over like the top 3 things I can really think of as to why your lower body is not growing. So obviously, maybe these things might not work for you, maybe they will, but take them into consideration and utilize them the best you can. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, so tip number 1 to help your legs grow and maybe why they're not growing is you're not warming up properly. I see so many people, they go into the gym and they almost always, they'll jump straight into their heavy set, or they'll do just a few like crappy sets, or they don't spend enough time even prior to their warm-up sets getting yourself warmed up. And when you're not warmed up right, your body, it's not loosened up and it's not ready to function right. You don't just take the car out when it's cold. You let the car run for a few minutes and let the engine heat up before you take it out for a spin. Your body is the exact same way. If you walk into the gym, you're cold, you're tight, you're not gonna be able to push yourself enough. And obviously what drives muscle growth is focusing on a progressive overload. And unfortunately, if you're not warmed up properly, you're not gonna be able to focus on progressive overload. If anything, you're just gonna be progressively injuring yourself, which is what we don't want. So what I recommend for warm up, especially on a leg day, I do this every day I work out though, is I'll walk on the treadmill at a pretty decent pace for about 5 minutes. And what this does, I do this until I get a slight sweat. That's the big thing with this. You wanna get a slight sweat, make sure that blood starts to flow through your body. And even more importantly on leg day, you're getting your legs moving around, loosen up a little bit, loosen up those quads, those hamstrings, those glutes, even your calves a little bit. So then after that, I almost always start my leg day with some sort of a squatting movement. So what I like to do is I like to do a dynamic warm up after my walking. And yeah, that seems kind of long, but it pays off and it helps me focus more on my lifts. So after that, I'll go into my dynamic warm up. And personally, I like to start out with squats on my workout. So this is kind of up to you, but I'll do 2 sets of hip abductions and then also abductions. And what this does, it gets the blood flow to my glutes because I find that my glutes are usually one of the tightest muscles. So if I get a little bit of blood flow to them, get them warmed up a little bit, my squats just go a lot smoother. So then after this, I go to my dynamic, continue my dynamic warm up, and I'll do my kicks. So I'll go a few kicks frontwards with each leg. I'll do a kick outwards with each leg, excuse me. Work your hips a lot, your glutes a lot, your hamstrings even, and that really just helps my legs get loosened up and ready for my squats. So now after these, I still just don't dive into my heavy set. That's honestly, you never want to just dive into your heaviest set right at the bat. That's when I get to the squat movement itself. And keep in mind, I start out with squats on my leg days, so if you start out with something else, that's cool too, but you can apply all of this to whatever you're starting out with. So my first movement of the day, I don't go into my heaviest set. I'll start out with the bar. Yes, just the bar, only 45 pounds. And I take these warm-up sets very seriously. I do anywhere from 3 to 5 warm-up sets usually. The higher the weight I go for my top set, the more warm-up sets I will do. So say for a squat, I work up to 315 pounds. Not saying I squat 350 pounds, I can't right now. But let's just use that as an example. So my first warm up, I would do the bar, and I would do that anywhere from 8 to 12 reps, taking those serious controlled reps. You don't want to just treat your warm-ups nonchalantly and just fly through the motions. You want to treat them every rep of your warm-ups like it's a top set and like you're going to die if you don't make that rep, because that's what's ultimately going to prepare you for your heaviest set. If you don't take those seriously, you're going to go into your heavy set tight, sore, and not ready to perform that movement. And if you're not ready to perform the movement, you're ultimately going to fail and not focus on progressive overload. So take these seriously. Each set, I slowly decrease the amount of reps just to save energy for that top set. I don't like to kill myself in these, but simply just get my CNS or central nervous system acclimated to more weight on my back, get my joints continue to be loosened up, and work my way slowly into that top set. So that really concludes this portion on just warming up. Again, that alone will not make your legs grow, but that can be a huge part as to why you're not getting stronger than gym. And if you're not getting stronger in the gym, in the right rep ranges, you're not really gonna see any muscle growth. And yes, my legs are still pretty skinny. They're not the biggest in the world, but I have seen very significant improvements in them over the past few months. So I'm really happy with that, and I'm continuing to make the most of that. So that's it for this tip. Tip number 2, and this one honestly, it could be my first tip, just because it's very important, and that is your form. Just like with anything, if you don't have proper form, you're not targeting your muscles properly, and if you're not targeting your muscles properly, you're not going to be able to progressively overload them. And like I said before, progressive overload is what drives muscle growth. So you have to take your form seriously. You have to treat your leg day just like any other workout day. Lots of times we're excited for a chest day because we love getting that chest pump, we love filling it out. So we take that very seriously. We try and progress our form on our chest movements because we want to make the most of those. Well, if you want to grow your legs, you have to make the most of them, and to make the most of them, you have to have good form. You can't just go in there and do a shitty squat and get this far down in your depth and expect that to be enough. No, you want to get a full range of motion, and that way you can fully target all the fibers of the muscle and absolutely get the most effort out of that movement. Because if your form is shitty, all you're gonna end up doing is just injuring yourself. So it just drives me nuts when I see guys in there and they load up the bars with weight and they don't have any idea what their form looks like. They're really, honestly, because all they're doing is they're just counterproducting their progress, And it's frustrating to see, because an ego can ruin so much in the gym. We all are so caught up in wanting to be the biggest guy in the gym, wanting to have all these sick gains, but at the same time, because we have that ego, it's making our progress even worse. So take your form seriously. If you aren't sure what your form needs to look like, or if you're not sure how to have perfect form, Google it, look up videos, even ask me. I'd love to help you out with that, because ultimately if I can help people make more gains, I'd love to do that, no problem. But just take the time to practice that, and if your form isn't good, that's an indicator that you're either going too heavy, that you don't have the proper range of motion. And when those things happen, if it's too heavy, lower the weight. Don't be afraid to go lightweight. I'm not a very strong guy. I don't squat that much. I don't bench that much. I don't put up crazy weights in the gym, mainly just because my body will not allow me to do super heavy weight without sacrificing my form. So what I do is I drop the weight in a weight that's extremely challenging for me, but it's in a way where I'm still able to hit form as perfect as I possibly can. So just because your form's not good doesn't mean you can drop the weight and make it easy, but drop it to a weight where you can still get just as much, make it just as challenging, but still allow yourself to have that perfect form. And I promise you, if you go from having shit form to very good form while still pushing yourself, I'm 90% sure you will make gains, just because form alone is such a huge thing to lifting. So take the time with that. If you're someone who has bad form already and you think you are progressing, maybe take a second, look at yourself, reevaluate yourself, and maybe take a step back if you have to. I know I've been bodybuilding for almost 3 years now, and I've been lifting for 6 to 7 years in total. And even to this day, with all those years of training, I still have to look back and reevaluate my form, because we're always progressing, and lots of times we like to get out of track. So don't be afraid to ever scale yourself back. Sometimes to take one step back, to take 2 or 3 steps forward. So don't worry about that, but really take that seriously, because it is so important. And that's it for this tip. Okay, so my third and final tip, and I'm just doing like the top 3 that I came off right at the top of my head here. Yes, there's probably other ones, but my third tip here is about effort. And this one drives me nuts. You have to have good effort, just like with anything. If you're going to an arm day and you're all excited, you're gonna get the craziest, juiciest arm pump ever, you put in a shit ton of effort in that. But when it comes to leg day, I see guys, they're just sitting there just nonchalantly, just doing their leg extensions. They're just kind of looking off, having a conversation, and they're like, oh, I'm working so hard. But no, you're putting in a shit effort. So if you put in a shit effort, you're gonna get shittier results. It just doesn't work that way. You can't just put in shit effort into something and expect to get great results out of it. It doesn't work like that. You need to put in the exact same effort to your leg days, even if not more than you would for any other workout day. And personally, until only a few months ago, I was this way. I was putting in just insane amount of effort in my chest days, my push days, or my back and pull days, because those were muscle groups I loved to train because I was excited. Because when you get a good chest pump or a back pump, you feel full, you feel big and strong. But the muscles you aren't really as strong with, such as my legs, have always been a weaker body part of mine. I've never really been excited to train them just because I don't really get that crazy pump in them, and and the progress is a lot slower, so I'm not as excited to train them, so therefore I would never put in the appropriate amount of effort to them. So eventually, like I said, only until maybe, 6 months ago, not that long at all, I started to tell myself, I'm just like, listen, enough with the bullshit, and you need to demolish your legs just like you demolish any other muscle group in your body. And ever since then, that's when I've seen the most results ever in my leg group. And it seems so simple, but honestly, no one ever likes to look at their effort and be like, okay, I need to get more effort. There's always something we can do, but it's so hard to look at ourselves and say, okay, I'm slacking off here, which is what I was doing. And I really was slacking because I was just going in there nonchalantly. But as soon as that switch flipped in my head, it's just like it was night and day. I felt so much more accomplished after my workouts, and sure enough, after a few weeks, the results already started to fly up. It was my progressive overload was getting up, I was getting stronger on my main lifts, like my squat and everything. And because I started to see those results and progressively get stronger, I started to build up more of an enjoyment for training legs. And that's the cool thing about it. Sometimes we may hate something at first, but by sticking with it and continuing to kill ourselves, we tend to build up a closer relationship with it. So I almost describe it now as a love-hate relationship with leg training, because it absolutely sucks, but honestly, it's probably one of my favorite days to train because it has like a different kind of mentality and character that you need to go in there and just demolish your lower body, because it's easy to stop as soon as things get hurt, start to get sore and painful. But with legs and just like any other muscle group, you have to push yourself past that point where things are sore, and past the point where your muscles actually give out and aren't able to excuse me, I'm lost of words here, aren't able to perform the movement. So yes, leg training, your legs may get sore and they may burn, but that doesn't mean you can stop right there. You have to continue to push yourself and just put the bullshit aside and just know that by putting in this effort, you are gonna see results. And honestly, I've learned to love leg training. I wake up in the morning excited to go leg train because I know on that day, I'm gonna test myself. I'm gonna test my mentality. I'm gonna test my body physically. So learn to embrace the suck. I know that's kind of like a Marine thing. I don't really want to steal that because leg training is nowhere near like the Marines or the Army or anything. But it's kind of that same concept where, yeah, it sucks, but you just gotta deal with it and put up with it and know that you're gonna make the most of it. So yeah, these are my 3 tips. And also, I'm gonna overlay my leg workout for today. So yeah, I think that's about it. So I'll see you guys later. Peace.
I also did some hip abductions and adductions, 2 sets of 15 and 20 reps apiece. So now, as you can see, I'm getting into my first movement of the day, and that's squats. And like I mentioned, I never go straight into my heaviest set because that's just simple and stupid, and you're going to injure yourself that way, and you don't get the most out of it. So right here, just the 45-pound bar. I'm just going through these, getting the most out of my reps. Yes, these reps are pretty fast, but they're controlled, and I'm getting full range of motion, and just really making sure I'm putting my body through the range of motion that it's going to be getting once I get up into that heavier weight on the squat. So you can also see here I put a little plate under my heels. That's just because I have really poor ankle mobility, and I tend to raise my heels up when I come down on a squat. So if I put a little inch inch thick plate under my heel. It prevents that heel from raising up and it gives me a lot more stability. Similar to just like wearing a squat shoe. So here I up the weight to a plate on each side, still very lightweight, and I bump the reps down to 3 reps. So like I said earlier, as the weight goes up, I will decrease my reps until I work up to that top single, and then I'll add the reps back on for my working sets. So I was 3 reps with 145 pounds. Now I up the weight again. I believe, I can't see what the weight is right here, but I believe it was 185 pounds. And this is my second warm-up set, and I'm also doing this one for 3 reps. And notice, yes, I have my knee sleeves on. I think you can always put your knee sleeves on just because they keep your knees warm and it protects them a little bit. But I don't have my belt on yet, and that's just because I'm not at a weight where I really feel like I need my belt. I only use my belt for really that higher weight sets or the sets where I'm doing a lot more volume and I need a little bit more core support and to help keep my lower back in line. So right here, I have the belt on. This is my first single of the workout. I usually do 2 singles. I do a pre-top single, which kind of gets my body used to wearing the belt, gets my body warmed up for that top single. And I just do this 1 rep here, try to make it as clean as I possibly can. And here I have 225 pounds on the bar. So it's really clean. And right here is my top single. And this I don't like to go insanely hard on, but this weight I like to get my body warmed up with, my CNS warmed up with. And it gets me used to carrying heavier weight on my back to make my back off sets seem a lot more smoother and like it's not as much weight on my back. So here, I think the movement went okay. Obviously, I'm not happy with my depth. I mean, it was decent depth, not gonna lie. Like if you pause it and stop it there, like I'm parallel if you pause it, but it's not as deep as I'd like it to be. So not perfect. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna keep that weight there, really dial it in, and just kind of own that weight. And if you're wondering, that was 270 pounds. So now we're on to my first working set. So I dropped the weight down pretty significantly, and our working sets are 3 sets of 10 with 185 pounds. So normally, if you guys haven't noticed already, I did a really big volume reduction in my workout. Normally I would do like 4 sets and a lot more supersets and a lot more volume in my workout. But I decreased that mainly just because I do a lot of time under tension and a lot of tempo into my sets, and lots of my sets will take anywhere from 40 seconds to even over a minute, and that just ends up where I'm in the gym for way too long. I'm overtraining and I'm not allowing my body to recover properly. So I just reduced some sets here and there because I really am just getting the most bang for my buck out of my workouts and making the most out of each and every set. So there's no point to do all these extra sets where I'm just kind of going through the motions. So I just kind of cut out the unnecessary bullshit, and I'm just focusing on what's necessary, what I need to be doing. And so far I'm feeling a lot better, a lot more fresh, and getting a lot more out of my workouts. And I actually feel a whole lot more tired because I really am able to treat every set with 100% effort, and it just makes me just feel like I accomplished so much more. So like I said, I did 3 sets of 10 here. Overall, it felt really good, and this is actually a crazy PR for me today. I don't think I've ever repped 185 pounds for 3 sets of 10. I don't even think I've done it for a set over 8. So it's just kind of a mindset thing that I was going through, which helped me push through. And also that reducing the volume slightly has really helped me maintain energy throughout my sets, because I also rest about another minute longer in between my sets just to make sure I'm getting the most out of them, because I don't lift weights to raise my heart rate. I don't want to make it a cardio session. I want to make it a muscle building session. And to build muscle, I need to get progressive overload. And if I'm not resting long enough, I'm not going to be able to progressively overload my body. So just allowing myself to rest is going to make me get the most out of these lifts. As you can see here, I was huffing and puffing towards the end. So it's not really sounding new, so you can't really hear me gasping for air really, but these killed and it felt really good. So now my second movement of the day is barbell RDL. So on my last training block, I was doing the hex bar RDL. So I figured this training block, I would switch back to the barbell just to switch things up a little bit, kind of shock the body again with something a little bit new. And so far, so good. The reason why I didn't really like barbell RDLs was just mainly because my grip strength gave out before my glutes and hamstrings did, and I just wouldn't get enough out of the movement. So I've been using some straps, and that really just kind of eliminates the whole grip issue, and I've been getting the most out of this movement because I'm able to really go until my glutes and my hamstrings actually are getting a decent amount of stimulus. Same thing here. I'm doing 3 sets of 10 to 12 reps, and I'm working with 185 pounds. And later I actually bumped it up to 205 because I was like, listen, I'm flying through this and I'm not pushing myself enough. So that's just an indicator where you got to bump up the weight and make the most of it. So right here is 205 pounds. And I'm only showing 2 sets here because, I mean, you don't need to see all 3 sets. It'll just be kind of pointless. But with everything in my workout, I'm making sure I get the form to the absolute best of my abilities. And that's one of the reasons why I like training with tempo, is it allows me to really just focus on that contraction and make sure I'm not putting my body in a vulnerable position to injure myself. So I just really like this whole tempo thing. Makes it a lot harder and also a lot safer at the same time. So 3 sets of 10 here, and then next movement we're going to get in back to some quad action. I like to kind of divide my work up into segments, so I'll usually go like a quad dominant exercise with my squat, then I'll go to a hamstring exercise that's dominant with the RDLs, and now I'm back to a quad dominant exercise. So here we're doing the hack squat machine with a narrow stance squat, and previously in my last block I was doing a narrow stance leg press, or technically a squat press, but I progressed a lot in there, and being that I was on that for like 8 to 10 weeks straight, I figured new training block, just switch it up slightly just because that's good. So you should do to shock the body. Not every week, but after a few weeks at a time in between training blocks, it's good to switch it up. And personally, I absolutely hate the hack squat machine. So you can't really tell right here, but I'm just dreading this movement right now because whatever it is, I just don't like this machine. So I figured that's even a better reason why I should force myself to do it, just because if you don't like something, force yourself to do it until you like it, or you at least don't hate it, because that just means you're a much more well-rounded, in this case, a lifter. But even in life with everything, I like to force myself to do things I don't like, just because then I don't have to be, whether I'm scared or whether I don't like to do something, I just don't really have anything to hold me back. And in this case here, I just didn't want this machine to be able to hold me back. So I'm going to force myself to do it, keep everything, perfect form, everything, and progress in it over the next 8 weeks. And you never know, maybe I'll end up liking it, but hopefully I just don't end up hating it at the end of it. So here, 3 sets of 8 to 10 reps. And being that I just started this, I'm only working with 8 reps right now. Still decent amount of hypertrophy volume, especially with the tempo. But so next week, I'm going to probably get a set of 9 and then 2 sets of 8, and then 2 sets of 9, and then 3 sets of 9 the 3rd week. Or 4th week, and then up it and work to 3 sets of 10. And once you get to 3 sets of 10, time to up the weight. And I don't know what it is with this machine, but it adds a lot of resistance on it. So as you can see here, I only have a plate on the side of it. And yes, I'm not the strongest person in the world, but still, like, only a plate on each side. So this machine had a whole lot of resistance to it. So now we're on a leg extension. And honestly, in terms of like mentally preparing yourself for a leg workout, this honestly was one of my biggest challenges today. And it's not even that big of a movement, but I find this one very challenging because it's easy to give up on this movement as soon as your legs start to burn. And one of the things you have to tell yourself, and I have to tell myself too, is that it's just because it's burning and it hurts doesn't mean you have to stop the movement. It doesn't mean you should stop the movement, because I can, even when it burns, I can still muscle that weight up, no problem. And I don't have an issue getting that weight up. It's just you have to fight through that burn. And one of the things I'm forcing myself to do is go until my muscles actually can't perform the movement anymore, rather than as soon as I feel that burn. So push through that burn. You can see here, I am killing. Like, this is really hard for me, and I'm struggling right now, but I'm still pushing through that burn to make sure my muscles are still getting the right amount of stimulus. And yeah, as you can see, I'm dead. So I had 3 sets of that, anywhere from 10 to 12 reps. And with the tempo, each set took like over a minute. It was crazy. So now we're on the lying leg curl. Same thing here. 3 sets of 10 to 12 with a 3-second negative, and just trying to get the most out of this one. My hamstrings, and hamstrings for most people, that some people have like a harder time activating the hamstrings. So I think with the tempo here, it really helps you get that squeeze in your hamstrings and really make sure you're feeling that contraction. And just historically throughout my athletic career, I've always had bad hamstrings. So in football, when I played football, I'd always end up pulling a hamstring somehow. So I find that when I really focus and slow the movement down, I can feel those muscles working, and I'm much less likely to pull a hamstring, to tear a muscle in there. So the tempo is a huge help for these. And I'm really squeezing as hard as I can at the top, and then just holding that muscle as tight as I can on the way down. This is kind of another one of those movements too, where it'll burn right away. just because it burns, you have to push through it, because technically your muscles, I mean, your muscles are still good. They can still perform the movement, but it does hurt and it does burn. But just because it burns doesn't mean you have to stop the movement whatsoever. So 3 sets, 10 to 12 reps. So I'm also going to be doing more calf training in this block. And yeah, I honestly hate training calves just because it's so boring. They're such a stubborn muscle group to train. And honestly, my calves haven't grown just because I don't give them enough volume. So, I mean, I'm not trying to hide that fact. I mean, I just don't train them enough, so that's pretty obvious. But this block, I'm hoping to get a little bit more volume, maybe see some results on them. So here, I'm doing a superset with a standing Smith machine calf raise, holding that as hard as I can at the top, getting that really good squeeze, then pausing at the bottom for a second. Here, I'm doing it anywhere from 10 to 15 reps. And compared to what I usually do, this is actually a pretty heavy weight, for me at least. So this actually killed pretty badly. And then after that movement, I goes directly into a seated calf raise. So like I said, this is a superset. So do 1 set of the standing, then I go right to the seated, and then repeat that. And I'm doing this all for 2 sets total. So technically it's like 4 sets. And here, same thing. We're from 10 to 15 reps, pushing up as high as you can, holding that contraction for a second, and then slower down. And then once you're at the bottom, let that foot fully extend and get that stretch, and then just repeat that anywhere from 10 to 12 reps. And even more so than the quads, the calves are also another great example of when a muscle will start to burn. But just because it burns doesn't mean you have to stop the movement. So really just give it your full effort. And that was my leg workout today. I also finished off with some abs real quick, but that's it. Thanks, guys.